If you're interested in learning how to make a 6 pieces godet skirt, this video is for you. And I'm also going to be showing you how to make a pencil skirt. So sit tight and watch this video to the end, and make sure you subscribe, share and like this video. So let me start by introducing myself. Hi, my name is Lillian of Lillian Fashion Lounge, and I talk everything fashion, pattern drafting, tutorials, freehand and many more. So let's get started. Now the first thing we're going to do is to get our basic bodies. Now I will not be drafting a basic bodies in this video, but I'm going to share a link to where I've drafted it. So please go and watch the video before you start drafting your bodies. So after doing that, the next thing we're going to be doing is to get our underbust height. So after getting it, then we're going to move to getting our empire contour, or we can call it underbust contour. Now to get our underbust contour, the first thing we're going to do, we're going to first of all measure the underbust line on paper. So after measuring, my original underbust is 33. So my underbust line on paper is 21. That is 42 divided by 2, which is 21. So I'm going to be dividing it. I'm going to be subtracting it. So after subtracting it, then I'm going to be dividing it by 4, whatever I get. So here I got 5.5. So that 5.5, I'm going to be dividing it by 4. Whatever I get is what I'm going to be subtracting from my underbust line at the dart area. So please watch and try to understand it. So I'm going to be measuring whatever I get on each side of the dart on the underbust line. Then I'm going to be connecting it as seen. So after connecting it, now the next thing that I'm going to do is to get my bust radius. Now what is a bust radius? Our bust radius is the area where our bust is going to be. So I'm going to start by measuring my nipple to under bust measurement. Then whatever I get, I'm going to measure it round the bust dart, as you can see here. Then I'm going to be connecting all the dots. As you can see, our bust radius is ready. So from this bust radius, I'm going to be covering our underbust contour, which is also called, it is known as empire contour, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to be calling it underbust contour. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to connect it. Now for connecting it, I'm going to be doing that later, but I'm just going to explain it here. So what I was supposed to do here is to connect it to the hip area. So I'll be doing that later, but just for the sake of this video, I'm just going to connect it to the waist, just for the sake of this video. So I'm not going to be needing the dart for the skirt. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark it out. I'm going to be marking it out to indicate that I won't be needing the dart. I'm going to be cutting out the dart. So now we are going to go ahead and join I'm going to join an extra paper to the paper that we had before to our bodies. Now this is because this is a gown, it's not a body. So I'm just going to connect. I'm going to add another paper to it to make it longer. So now after joining the paper, I'm going to go ahead and measure whatever I measured for the bodies. I'm going to measure it here. So what I measured for the bodies, for the borderline sorry, what I measured for the borderline was 21 inches. So that's what I'm going to be measuring here. Then I'm going to connect it. I'll measure my 3/4 length and connect it because the gown I'm making is a 3/4 gown. So here I'm trying to connect to measure my knee length. So for my knee length, I'm going to be getting my 3/4 length. So this is my knee length. So I'm going to go ahead and measure my 3/4 length. So for the 3/4 length, I just decided to add 8 inches, 8 to 9 inches. So you can decide to add whichever length you want to, depending on how long you want it to be. But for me, 8 inches is okay. Now the next thing I'm going to be doing is to create a margin. So I'll be dividing the line into two. So I'll be 21 divided by 2, which is going to give us 10.5. So I'm going to be measuring 10.5. Then I'm going to be connecting it with a straight line as seen. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it out. Now we are going to move to getting our pencil skirt. Our pencil skirt measurement. Now to get our pencil skirt measurement, we are going to be using our hip to get our pencil skirt measurement. Now what we are going to do is you're going to deduct a certain amount of measurement from your hip. So for me, I deducted 5 inches. So whatever you get, you're going to divide it by 4. So whatever your answer is, that's what you're going to be measuring on the knee length. So for me, after dividing, what I got was 9.5. So I'm going to measure in 9.5 and I'm going to mark it. Now, whatever you measure on your knee, you're going to measure it on your 3/4 length or your full length, depending on what you want to make. Then I'm going to be connecting it from the 3/4 length to the knee length with a straight line. Then I'm also going to be connecting it back with a slant line. Now you connect it back to the hip, the tip. As you can see, I'm going to be connecting it like that. So that is how we are going to be getting our pencil skirt pattern. So in order to avoid that pointy area, I'm going to be using my hip curve to smoothing out the excess, the pointy area. So now we are done with the basic part of the pattern. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to connect. Now don't forget that this is a 6-piece gown, so I'm going to be connecting my my nipple point on the hip line, the knee length and the 3/4 line. Then I'm going to be connecting it with a straight line as seen. So I'm going to go ahead and label. My pattern. Now, for pattern drafting, labeling is very, very important because sometimes the papers are going to be looking the same. But when you label your patterns, it will be easier for you to fix them back together or to identify what pattern you are supposed to sew and what pattern you are not supposed to sew, or what side you're supposed to sew. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to contour my back. So I'm going to be shaping my back. Now this part is to eliminate any bulging for the back, for the center back. So I'm going to be measuring my back waist. Now there's what we call the front waist and the back waist. I'm going to be measuring my back waist, and I'm going to connect it with a straight line back to the waist. Then as you can see here, I'm folding it to make sure that the dart is equal as it's supposed to be. So after doing that, I'm going to be indicating that I'm going to be indicating that I'm cutting it out. The next thing I'm going to be doing is to cut out my style line. So for the style line, I'm going to be measuring 3 inches from my basic neckline. Then from there, I'm going to be curving it. I'm going to be drawing a sweetheart shape towards the armhole. Now I'm also going to measure. I'm going to do the same thing for the back. So to do the back, I'm going to transfer the measurement. I'll measure how it is in the front, the length of the curve. Then I'm going to mark it on the back and draw it a slant line. You can decide to use a straight line, but I wanted it to be a slant line for this dress. Then I'm going to be labeling it as seen. Please don't forget to label your patterns. It is very, very important. Now we are not done with the pencil skirt. Now it remains the back contour. Now for the back contour, we are going to be measuring 1 inch. You can decide to use ½ inch. You can decide to use 2 inches, depending on how fitted you want it to be. But I will not advise you to use 2 inches. It will be too much. Now for the back contour, for the back, I'm going to be measuring ½ inch. So after measuring your ½ inch on the knee line and the cutter line, I'm going to go ahead and measure my hip to underbutt measurement. So from there, I'm going to draw a line and connect it as seen. So the next thing to do is to cut out our patterns. So now, after cutting it, I realized that I did not cut out my shoulder dart. So that is what I'm going to be doing now. Now to get your shoulder dart, you're going to divide your shoulder line into your shoulder slope into 2. Then you are going to be connecting it to the bust point. But for this, because I'll be using net for the upper part, I just connected it to the style line. So I'm going to be cutting it out as seen. Then I'm also going to be labeling. Now we are going to move to how we are going to get our godet. So to get the godet, we are going to be measuring 4 to 5 inches, depending on how long you want it to be. But from the knee length, I'm going to be coming up by 4 to 5 inches. Then I'm going to measure it to the hem. Whatever I get, I'll be using it as the length of my godet. And you're also going to indicate, as you can see, I'm indicating here. Now this indication, while cutting my fabric, I'm going to be using it as a reference for notching. When notching the fabric, to know where the godet is going to stop. So I got 12.5 for my godet length. So I'm going to be cutting a 12.5 godet on paper. So after getting it, you're going to go ahead and measure how wide you want your godet to be. For me, 5 is okay. You can decide to use 6, you can decide to use 7, depending on what you want to use. But for me, 5 is okay. So I'm going to be connecting it here. So after drafting, I'm going to be cutting it. Then I'm also going to be determining how many godets I'm going to be using. So for this one, I'm going to be using 8. So I'll be using this is after counting, it is 4. So 4 plus 2, 4 multiplied by 2, which will give us 8. So I'm going to be using 8 for, I'm going to be cutting 8 godets for this gown. So this is where I'm going to be stopping this video. I'm going to see you for the sewing part of this tutorial. So see you guys in the next one. Bye.